Hi, everyone. I am Courtney Portell. I am one of the school counselors at Patriot. I have been a school counselor for, I think I'm going on year 14 and I think year 11 at Patriot. So I've been there for quite a while. We go by Alpha at our school. So we try to stay with our students throughout all of high school just so that we're able to build better relationships with them as we get to know them throughout high school. So thank you so much for being here. Miss Carell and I, who I will allow her to introduce herself as well, but we thought this presentation, we've been doing it for quite a few years now. We think it's important just to give parents a better idea about that transition to high school. So Ms. Carell, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Ms. Portell. So I have been at Patriot on and off for, 6 or 7 years. And then I also was at Marsteller for a few years, and Brentsville before that. So, like Ms. Portell said, we've been doing this for a while now, and we just feel like this is a good opportunity to get some of that basic knowledge for high school out to everyone.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so our agenda tonight, we are going to go over some basic terminology. We will talk about graduation requirements and then the academic advising process, which is coming up soon. I believe we're going to one of the middle schools next week and the other one that week after. And then we'll talk about some of the course options that we have and just typical sequences that students follow. And we'll provide information about specialty programs at our school. And then we'll just have a slide about who your students counselor will be next year. Hoping there will be no more changes in our alpha and that this will be exactly how it will be next year. All right, so just for terminology, some of you may be familiar with this already. Some of it may be brand new if this is your first student going to high school. So something that is super important is your transcript or your student's transcript. So this is a record of all of their grades, classes they've taken, their GPA or grade point average. The county does require us to put SAT or ACT scores on there. However, that can be removed if it is requested by you and your student to remove them from the transcript. That will be an option later on in high school. And then it also includes your student's percentile rank. Your students may be building a transcript already. You may not even realize that, but if they are in any classes in middle school, such as Algebra 1 or geometry or a language like Spanish or French, those classes will be reflected on their transcript. If they are not doing well in those classes right now, that is okay. We'll go over this later in the presentation, but you will have the opportunity to expunge that grade from their transcript and have it removed, and then they can retake that class. If it's like Algebra 1, they can retake that class in ninth grade. Grade point average, this is really important. Students don't realize how important their ninth grade year is in terms of their overall GPA. So they start building that GPA their freshman year. And it's just the average of all of the grades they have earned and the points associated with those grades, and then divided by the number of credits that they've attempted. So I will tell you that a lot of times students come in and are a little don't realize the importance of ninth and 10th grade. And that is when you do see the most movement in a student's GPA is throughout ninth and 10th grade. Of course, there is still an impact on their GPA throughout their junior and senior year, but it does become harder as they get into the higher grade levels to see a large amount of movement in their GPA. So it is really important that they start off strong their freshman year. And then grade point value, that's the points assigned to standard, advanced, in our AP and dual enrollment classes. So for standard classes, you'll see in a chart later on in the slide, that's just awarded standard grade point value. Our advanced classes have an additional half weight associated with them. And then those AP and dual enrollment courses have a full weight associated with those courses. And then verified credits, those are their SOLs that they have to pass for graduation. All right, so this is an example of a transcript. So as I mentioned before, you can see on this example, this student took 2 classes in middle school. Those are both reflected on their transcript. So that Advanced Algebra 1 and the Spanish one. And then you can just see throughout high school, you can see their final grades on there, the 1 credit they're awarded for each of their courses. And then you will see there's a second column next to some of those classes. Those are the verified credits, those SOLs. So you can also see over there, they provided a nice little chart on the right-hand side where it's the graduation requirements. It's a credit summary. So it shows you in that first column what is required. It looks like this student's on an advanced diploma. So it shows you what's required in that first column. It shows you what the student has completed in that second column. And then it shows you the work in progress, what that student still needs for graduation. They also have the verified credit summary. And so that just shows you all of the SOLs that are required. Students have to pass 5 total. Many students will complete 3 of their 5 SOLs in 9th grade. They'll get those completed by taking their math class, whether that be Algebra 1 or geometry. Typically, they will typically get an SOL in their science class, which a lot of times they'll be in biology as freshmen. And then also that history class, they'll be in World History 1. So potentially by the end of their freshman year, they may have passed 3 of the 5. And then the other 2 are from English, and students take those, the reading and writing SOL in their 11th grade English class. You'll also see there's a virtual experience requirement that's completed through their econ and personal finance class. That is a class that is required for graduation for all students, no matter what diploma they're on. And so we do have a regular econ class, and we also have an AP econ option. Most students typically take that class, I would say, in their junior year, but you can take it as early as your sophomore year, or you can also take it senior year. There is an option to take that class online through Virtual Prince William. Some of our students choose to do that because there are many other electives they're interested in, and they just want to open up space in their schedule. So we do have students take that econ class online. In case you haven't heard, and we'll go over this in a little bit, Virtual Prince William is now offering all classes for free. So there used to be a $375 fee for summer classes, and that is no longer the case. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the presentation, but that is a big change for us. As I mentioned before, you can omit a grade from middle school. So if your student is in Spanish or Algebra 1 and they are just not doing well, then we would recommend that you expunge that grade, and you can complete that process through the middle school and have that removed from their transcript. I do typically recommend that if it is a grade of a C or lower, I do think it's beneficial to expunge that grade, just because having a C on the transcript and that's kind of being the beginning of their GPA, it does make it challenging. So I would say if your student is earning an A or a B, that's great. But if they are earning a C or lower in a class, I would think about having that expunged and then retaking it. Right, and then down here in the left-hand corner, you can see their overall GPA is that 3.89, and it does provide the percentile. It kind of shows you, based on your student's GPA, how they rank within their class. This is the updated grading scale, which has changed very, very recently. We're all still trying to learn and understand it. But you can just kind of see letter grades associated with those percentages. So for example, 90 to 100s are an A. And this is where I was talking about those quality points. So in a standard class, a student is getting 4.0 quality points for that A. In an advanced class, so for example, Advanced English 9, you're getting a half of a weight. So instead of it being a 4.0, you're getting a 4.5. And then in an AP or dual enrollment class, you are getting a full weight. So an A would be a 5.0. So that's kind of how you see some students, when you see their GPAs are like a 4.3 GPA, that's because they've been taking those fully weighted classes like those AP and dual enrollment classes. So you can just kind of see this. This is all information that can be found in the Prince William County course catalog. And this presentation will also be posted on our website as well. So for graduation requirements, I believe all of your 8th grade students had this presentation with their middle school. So they did receive this information, but we are just constantly talking about graduation requirements with them as well. We love for students to be knowledgeable about credits they're completing and staying on track, but just to ease your mind, we as counselors are constantly analyzing this information, making sure students are staying on track and all of that. So I don't want you to think it's solely your job or your child's job to understand where they are in terms of meeting graduation requirements. For a standard diploma, a student needs to earn 22 credits throughout high school and 5 verified credits, which are the SOLs. And then for the advanced diploma, it is 26 credits and same amount of SOLs. The main difference between the two diploma types in terms of classes that are needed, one is that you are required to take 4 years of history, 4 years of math, and 4 years of science for the advanced diploma. For the standard diploma, you only need 3 years of all of those. So 3 years of math, 3 years of science, and 3 years of history. So that is one major difference. The other difference is for the advanced diploma, you do have to complete either 3 years of one language, so Spanish 1, 2, and 3, or 2 years of 2 different languages. So sometimes we have students complete Spanish 1 and 2 and American Sign Language 1 and 2, and that would fulfill the requirement as well. We do encourage most students to just start off on an advanced diploma, and the reason being is because in 9th grade, there really is not a difference between the classes you're taking if you're on an advanced diploma or you're on a standard diploma. So we typically like for students to keep that option open to be on that advanced studies diploma. Of course, if you feel very strongly right off the start that your student be on a standard, then please reach out to your counselor and just communicate that to them, and we can change that information in the system. But really in 9th grade, they're going to be in an English, a math, a science, a history. If they choose not to take a language their freshman year, that is perfectly fine. They can still choose to take one starting in 10th grade and still get the 3 years they need for the advanced diploma. So we are happy to work with you and adjust that diploma type at any time. We just typically start off every student on that advanced diploma, just so you're aware. Here are the requirements that I just went over. This can all be found in the course catalog. One thing I want to note is with the advanced studies diploma, some students think that means I have to take an advanced classes throughout high school. That is not necessarily true. So you could have a student who is taking regular classes, or standard classes the entire time they're in high school, but they are still meeting the requirements for the advanced studies diploma. So they're still getting 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, and 4 years of history. They're completing that world language requirement. So advanced studies does not necessarily mean advanced classes. So just to clarify that. Some of the other requirements, so you'll see down there, every student, like I said, has to have econ and personal finance. And then students do either have to take one advanced course throughout high school. So like I said, that could be advanced English 9, that could be advanced biology. We have lots of advanced classes, or they have to pass a CTE credentialing exam. So many of our career and tech ed classes have credentialing exams. Our econ and personal finance is actually a class that has a credentialing exam as well. So there are many opportunities for students to get that credentialing exam throughout high school. It's not necessarily something that they have to seek out and ask to be tested for. Many of our students are already tested for that. These are the standard diploma requirements. I did forget to mention one thing is that students do have to complete a sequential elective throughout high school. So we are typically working with students throughout high school and making them aware of that requirement pretty early on so that it's not something that they're waiting to complete when they're a senior. So in our course catalog, we have kind of a list of all of the courses that go together as a sequential elective. So when we see students take a certain elective in ninth grade, we make them aware of other electives that would count toward that sequential elective. Or if they choose to go in a different direction and take a totally different kind of elective, that is perfectly fine. We encourage students to explore different electives, but we do try to help them keep in mind that eventually throughout high school, they will need to have that sequential elective requirement completed. So academic advising is starting next week. We will be visiting our two main feeder middle schools within the next couple weeks. So Marsteller is going to be on the 12th, and then, I'm sorry, Marsteller is going to be on the 18th, and then Gainesville is going to be on the 12th. So how that works is we are all individually set up at our own tables, and we will meet with our students who will be in our alpha next year. So I will meet with students with the last name BRO through D. Sorry, it's changed so much. Sometimes I forget my own alpha. So I will meet with all of those students with that last name. And we sit down, and what we do is we look at their first semester grades, and then we also have recommendations from their eighth grade teachers. And then, of course, we hear from the students, like, about what they want to take, what they're interested in. And so that's how we help them pick their core subjects is based on their recommendations and their grades. And then we go through the electives. Most students will have space after their 4 core classes, plus they will have health and PE, so that's 5 classes. And then if a student is taking a language, that would take up another spot. So that would be a total of 6, and that would leave them room to take one elective of their choice. So typically students pick that very first elective that's at the top of their list, and then we ask them to pick at least 2 alternate electives. What I will say about those alternate electives is I would highly encourage your students to pick classes they actually want to be in, even when they are the alternate electives. Because if that first choice elective is full, we don't have enough space, or it doesn't work with their schedule, we do then move to their second choice. And then if needed, we move to their third choice. So we do encourage students to really pick electives, even those alternates that they want to be in, because they could end up in those. They will bring home a yellow copy of their course selection sheet. So on the days that I've listed here on this slide, that afternoon, you can ask your student, do you have that copy that you scheduled with your counselor? And they should be able to show that to you. And you do have, on this next slide, you do have until May 22nd to request changes. So we are going to be scheduling with them in February. So they are going to have quite a bit of time, a few months, to really solidify their choices. What I will say is that although they have until May 22nd, I would encourage them, especially with those elective classes, if they want to make a change, I would really try to do that before we go on spring break. And the reason being is once we kind of get to around the end of March, we're building the master schedule and based on students' requests that they've given us. And so some of those electives could be full by the time we get into end of March or beginning of April. So if your student is wanting a change, they have until May 22nd to request it, but they have the best chance at getting their elective options if they bring back those changes, I would say by the end of March. I think that's it for this one. Yeah. Okay. So this is just an outline of a typical ninth grade schedule. So they are going to have English 9. We have 2 options. It'll be the standard English 9 or the advanced English 9. For history, it's World History 1. So we have a standard class and an advanced class. For science, our students are pretty much going into biology. So it's either standard biology or advanced biology. We do offer an environmental science class. That class is typically for our students who may need some additional support in science. They could be struggling in their current science class or struggling to pass that science SOL. So that is a class that's kind of reserved for students who may need some additional support in that subject area. For math, it really just depends if your student is in pre-algebra right now or algebra 1 or geometry as an eighth grader. So there are quite a few different options. We only offer, well, sorry, this actually wasn't updated. We have algebra 1 and advanced algebra 1, and then geometry and advanced geometry, and then an algebra 2 and an advanced algebra 2. And then there's the health and PE 9 class. Students have to complete 2 years of PE, so that's done in their 9th and 10th grade year. The driver's ed classroom portion is completed in their 10th grade PE class, just so you're aware of that. And then they do have space for a world language if they choose to do that. We offer Spanish, French, or ASL in our building. If they don't do a language, they'll just have another space for an elective. And then that 7th space is reserved for an elective as well. This is our scheduling form. So when they come home, this is what it should be, a yellow copy that looks like this. And all of their top 7 classes should be marked on there. And then there will be a couple of alternate electives that they have down at the bottom. So if you want to make any changes, you can just make the change right on this sheet. I would just ask that you do it in pen so we can clearly see that it's a change, and you can just cross off what they don't want and check off or circle the class that they do want, and just make sure you sign it at the bottom, and then they can return it to their middle school counselor, and then that counselor will send it over to us. So virtual Prince William, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but that is now completely free. And so they offer classes 3 different times of the year. They do have classes during the fall and spring semesters, so during the school year. So if your student were to sign up for a class in the fall or the spring of their freshman year, that would mean they would be in 8 classes at one time. They would have 7 classes at Patriot and an additional class online. So that could potentially be a lot for a 9th grader to handle, just because they're already transitioning to high school, which can be a challenge. But the reason I want to bring this to your attention is because there are some students who, for example, do not want to take health and PE in the building. It could be because they don't like taking health and PE, or it could be that some students really want additional electives in their schedule. So they just want to get it out of the way and do it online. So if your student is interested in taking specifically that health and PE this summer, registration opens on February 9th at 9 a.m. And what I will tell you is health and PE is one of the most popular, if not most popular class offered through Virtual Prince William. So if your student is thinking about doing this, I would absolutely register that day and time that it opens, especially now because the summer classes are free. So I think it's going to fill up even faster. So I would definitely register that that very first day. So these classes are fully asynchronous. They don't necessarily have to be logged in at a certain time of day or on live Zooms with teachers or anything like that. So they are expected to work independently and keep up with the pacing of the course. There are deadline dates and things like that. So these are courses that if you choose not to work on it for a couple of days, it can make the student feel like they're actually like a couple of weeks behind if they're not consistently logging in and completing the work. All right, I will hand it over to Miss Corral.
All right, thanks, Ms. Portal. So one other thing I did want to mention about the virtual Prince William health and PE class is that, a lot of students think that a PE class would be easy to do because they think, well, I'll just do the work online. But they do have a heart rate monitor that they have to wear, and their heart rate has to get up to a certain level. So for some students, that's more challenging than others to do on their own in the summer. So I would just take that into consideration as well, for what's most appropriate for your student. So levels of courses, at Patriot, we offer these four different levels. For ninth and 10th grade students, as Ms. Portel mentioned earlier, they will have the option of standard or advanced courses in our core areas, so English, math, social studies, and science. Advanced placement and dual enrollment courses are offered later on in high school, typically. There are some AP classes that are offered earlier. So, a big question we receive at the high school is what is the difference between standard and advanced courses? There is a pretty big difference between a standard and an advanced course. As you can see on the slide, it's going to be a faster pace. It's going to give the student more in-depth analysis of the material, potentially increased projects and papers, more reading and writing is required of these classes, just more in-depth, more complexity. The advantages of advanced courses are that they do provide a increased rigor for students who may want that in their curriculum. We also believe they help prepare students to then step up into those AP and DE courses as they get older. Because advanced courses are more rigorous, the Prince William County Schools does weight any advanced course of a point 0.5. So for instance, if you get an A in an advanced course, that would be a 4.5 going into your GPA as opposed to a 4.0 for a regular course. Um, the other thing to note is that, many of you all coming from middle school are in extended classes. So you might be in extended language arts, you might be in a math science program, you might be in like Marsteller has their science enrichment class that you can take. Those are not the same as advanced courses in high school. So we have a lot of students that think, okay, I'm in these extended classes in middle school and I'm doing great, and so I'm just going to take those classes in high school. In high school, we really do emphasize what the student is interested in learning. So if you have a student who loves math and wants to take an advanced math course and is doing well, great. Sounds like that's a good match. If they happen to be doing fine in their extended language arts, but they don't really like it and they really don't want to do the additional writing and reading and all of that that goes along with an advanced English class, that may not be the best match. So that's where, talking to the school counselor at the middle school, you all are welcome to reach out to us at the high school, and then looking at the teacher recommendations to see what the eighth grade teacher has recommended so that we can best match them to the most appropriate courses for next year. So that's usually a big question we get. So then advanced placement is typically in 11th and 12th grade. We do have some classes that are offered earlier. For instance, AP Computer Science Principles is an elective class available from ninth grade on. I will caution that taking it in ninth grade would be a lot. We do have some 10th graders every year taking it, and every once in a while a ninth grader, but you're typically going to be with older students, which is why I think 10th grade students do pretty well in that class if they want to take that as an elective earlier. Um, Advanced placement classes, the curriculum is set by College Board. So our AP teachers, their curriculum is set by that organization, which is outside of Prince William County Schools. And the advantage of an AP course is it should be the same rigor as college courses. And so we want students who are motivated and who can think and learn on their own because that is what they're expecting in college. So we really want students to think about advanced placement classes and what those requirements will eventually be. And that's why we think taking advanced classes in ninth and 10th grade really does help prepare students for those AP classes. With AP classes, they do have the potential to earn college credit. Typically, you have to earn a 3, 4, or a 5 on the AP exam, which those exams are given in May. It does depend on the specific college that a student ends up at, which then tells you what credit they will actually receive. For instance, if a student goes to George Mason, they might take a 3 on a certain AP exam. If you end up going to UVA, they may require a 4 or 5. So it just depends on the school that you end up at. And like we mentioned before, all of the AP classes are weighted on a 5.0 scale as long as the students earn a C or above. You do have to have a C or above. So again, if you get an A in a class, you'll end up with a 5.0 being averaged into your GPA as opposed to a 4.0. Okay, and then we also have dual enrollment classes at Patriot, which is typically called DE. So these courses are taught by Patriot teachers who are also able to teach college level courses. So it's dual enrollment because Patriot students are enrolled at Patriot and earning a high school credit, and also enrolled in Nova, our community college, and earning college credits for the same course. So the first time that students can take DE courses is in 11th grade. There's one exception. If you potentially are going to be in pre-calculus as a 10th grader, we do have maybe a couple students each year who could potentially do DE pre-calculus at that point, and they have to get special permission for that. There are requirements that students have to meet in order to be eligible to take a DE class. So, and these are NOVA's requirements, not Patriot's requirements. So you do have to have either a 3.0 overall GPA at that point. So that's where those ninth and 10th grade classes come into play. So if you've done well in ninth and 10th grade and have at least a 3.0 GPA, then you could be eligible to take dual enrollment classes in 11th grade. If you maybe don't have quite that GPA, but your PSAT score is high enough, you could still be approved to take a DE class. And that's where you'd want to just check with the school counselor and we can help guide the student with that. The college credit is great. The other piece to this is that dual enrollment classes in Prince William County are free. In other counties, that may not be the case. So if you have friends or family in other counties in Virginia, that may not have been the case. But in Prince William County, they are currently all free for students. There are no expenses attached to them, and so students are basically getting those free college credits. There's not an exam at the end of the year like the College Board exams for AP tests. As long as you earn a C or higher, then you do earn those credits with NOVA. Now, when the student does go on to their four-year college after high school, it does depend a little bit on how that college will use those credits. So they might be elective credits for them. They might be credits for specific courses like English or history. And it a little bit depends on their major as well. But those credits are guaranteed as long as they earn a C or higher. All right. And DE courses are weighted as well, same as AP. So we're going to talk a little bit about our specialty programs. I know that it's past the deadline of February 1st, so hopefully any of you who have interest in any of our specialty programs have already applied. But some of these are for later in high school as well. So we'll go over each one of these. The ones that we have are AP Scholars, and Miss Moore is our coordinator for that. TV production is a four-year program here at Patriot, and Ms. Rawling is that instructor. Building trades, and Mr. Midkiff is the coordinator for that. And then Chef Lombardi is our culinary arts instructor. So we'll go over each one of those. So there are two types of specialty programs in Prince William County. There are transfer programs and transport programs. So transfer programs mean that you can transfer to Patriot and become a full-time Patriot student if you are accepted into one of these programs. So some of you may have applied to AP Scholars or TV production or building trades, and Patriot may not be your base school. So if you are accepted to one of those programs and we are not your base school, we would then become your full-time school. So students who are accepted into these programs are given express bus stop transportation to be able to come to Patriot. And you take all of your classes at Patriot, including the specialty program that you are involved with. In each of these programs, you are able to also apply to them after your rising ninth grade year. So, for instance, AP Scholars, sometimes we have students in ninth grade, they're a Patriot student anyways, and they happen to be taking advanced classes, and they decide after ninth grade that they want to go ahead and be part of AP Scholars. That's something you can apply to after, this eighth grade time period if you choose to do that. All right, and then we have one transport program. What this means is that if you are interested in culinary arts, but Patriot is not your base school, you could apply and come for the Culinary 1 and Culinary 2 classes, but you would take the rest of your classes at your base school. So, for instance, we might have a student coming from Brentsville and they come over as an 11th grader, they take their culinary classes, and then they go back to Brentsville for the rest of their classes. And they would do that for 11th and 12th grade. Culinary arts is not a four-year program, and so it cannot be a transfer program. It's just offered to students who want to come for just culinary arts. All right, and as you all probably know, some of the criteria that we look at when they are deciding who will be admitted into the specialty programs is looking at the students' transcripts and grades, attendance and discipline, especially for the more hands-on programs like building trades, TV production, and culinary arts. They really want to see good attendance, that there's not discipline issues, because if you miss a day, you're missing a lot. And so they want to make sure students will be here so that we can teach them all the amazing things about those programs. For the students who do qualify, if there are more students who apply than there are seats, then there is a lottery system. And many of the specialty programs do have to use a lottery system because they are pretty popular. So, as it says here, usually towards the end of February, you all will receive communication from the specialty programs office as to the decision of the applications. And then for students who have applied to a specialty program and it's not at their base school, if we have to, we go back to the middle schools to adjust schedules if needed. And so, especially for like maybe our students who, when we're at Marstello or Gainesville, if Patriot is your base school, but you are planning to apply to say a specialty program, let's say Brentsville's Cambridge program, we will note that on your scheduling form. And then whenever, let's say you get accepted to that specialty program, then we would send the information to Brentsville and they will reach out then to do their scheduling, since they might have different electives and things like that. All right, and again, it's past the deadline, but hopefully for those of you who were interested in applying for a specialty program, you did that before February 1st was the deadline. Even with the snow, that February 1st deadline did stay. And you were able to go on to the specialty program's website to complete that. As a reminder, any student who is interested in a specialty program can apply to some of these later on as well. So if this might be the first time your student is hearing about one of these programs and they're really interested in it, don't assume that they can't get into it as maybe a rising 10th grader. Definitely have them talk to their school counselor when they get to high school next year, and we are happy to help guide them and see if maybe applying to a program as a rising 10th grader makes sense as well, because sometimes we can do that, even with some of the four-year programs. Like I've had students apply to building trades and TV production later. They will accept them, as a rising 10th grader as well. All right, so this is our AP Scholars Transfer Program. These are typically the number of courses that we see students taking each year through AP Scholars. The program requirements, the basic requirements are that you have to take at least two advanced courses each year. That can be advanced, it can be AP. There is the option to count one DE course as well. So we do have some AP Scholars students who do choose to take some DE courses as well. You can kind of mix and match there. So you have to have at least two advanced courses each year, and you have to have either a total of five AP courses by the time you graduate, or like I said, you can have one DE course and four AP courses. You do have to maintain at least a C in all of your coursework. So not just your advanced classes, but all of your classes have to be C or above. There's also a community service requirement. And Miss Moore, who is the coordinator, has a Canvas page that she shares with the AP Scholar students with ideas for community service and how to document that. So they'll get more information about that later on. And then students do a final portfolio or an AP capstone seminar, which is a course that we offer. So it is over 4 years for students who want that additional rigor and they want to kind of be recognized for that at the end of their 4 years. The seniors and AP scholars, if they've completed the full program, will get a medal that they wear at graduation. They do a nice job of recognizing those students because it is a lot that they've done for it. All right, and then TV production is one of our newer programs. As you can see on the left there, digital visualization would be the first elective that you would take in the TV production course list here. And then video media tech, and then TV production one and two. So this is for students who are interested in helping with the morning announcements. They do broadcast events, podcasts, all different kinds of things. Again, you have to keep that overall C average each year. And this one, they do look at attendance and discipline because, as you can imagine, these students are maybe told to go in Commons during lunch to do videos or to talk to a teacher, about a certain topic and record and put together a news broadcast. So these are students who we want to make sure that they are responsible and mature and can handle those kinds of assignments. So they do look at attendance and discipline as well. And then we have building trades. This is for students who really want to do something more hands-on. Construction tech is typically the ninth grade course. And then this has changed a little bit. Typically, we'll have students do production systems. They can do building trades one in 10th grade, but they could also do production systems in 10th grade and then building trades one and two in 11th and 12th. Below are some of the topics that they cover. And these students end up leaving high school ready to go straight into the workforce. These are the types of skills that companies are looking for. And so if you have a student where they do not care about math, but they want to build something. They want to create something. This is the type of program that would be wonderful for them, and really set them up to be successful right out of high school. Just like the TV production, we want them to have good attendance and good discipline, and an overall C average each year as well, just to help make sure that they are making adequate progress towards graduation. But yeah. All right, and then we have culinary arts, our cooking program. So this is a program that's very popular. We have a lot of Patriot students that choose to apply to this program, and then of course our students from other high schools as well. The ninth and 10th grade courses listed are optional. I will say if your student is really interested in the culinary arts program, taking the Intro to Culinary program in 10th grade is a really smart idea because Culinary Arts 1 and 2, those are both 2 credit classes. So it takes up 4 credits over 11th and 12th grade. And you really want to make sure that it's something you're interested in and that you think you'll do for the 2 years. You don't want to get into Culinary 1 and then decide that it's not for you and change your mind at that point. And most students do enjoy that Intro to Culinary class as well. So students are going to learn how to prepare food and learn service skills and things like that. And they usually also have speakers come in from different areas of culinary arts so that students can see how they can then transfer these skills into the workforce, which is really nice. So students are required to complete Culinary 1 in junior year, Culinary 2 in senior year. Again, we're looking for that overall C average each year and good attendance, good behavior. And again, this is a transport program. All right, so this is our alpha, our caseloads for this year. So based on your student's last name, you can see who their counselor will be most likely next year. This is also who you can reach out to this spring if you have any questions about scheduling, virtual Prince William, or anything like that that has to do with high school next year. We are happy to talk with our rising ninth grade parents. We would much rather have you reach out now so that we can help make sure that your student is right where they should be for ninth grade than to wait until ninth grade starts and then having to kind of backpedal or make changes at that point. So feel free to reach out to your student school counselor. We would love to talk with you and get to know about your student. We always enjoy going over to the middle schools and meeting them for the first time and starting to get to learn who they are. So, again, this is based on the student's last name. If your student has 2 last names, like a double last name, it's the first of the 2 last names, just as an FYI. So, and we do also have a college and career counselor, Miss Jager, listed at the bottom. So, this is unique for high schools. She does not have a specific caseload. She works with all students in the building, and she will provide college and career counseling for all the students in the building. She probably works more with our juniors and seniors, but anyone can go see her at any point about college and career questions. All right. So Ms. Portel mentioned that we're going to be at Gainesville Middle, I believe, next week, and then Marsteller the week after that. So the biggest thing that we see for students coming to meet with us is helping them decide which electives to choose. That is a big thing for them because if you think about it, they've never had so many choices before. And to only be able to pick 1 or 2 electives when we have way more than that to choose from, that's a tough thing for an eighth grader to decide. So if you can help us by talking to them about the electives they're interested in, that would help us a lot when we meet with them because then they will come with some idea of what they might want to do. They might change their mind, and that's fine, but at least to have a starting point. And then if you do have a student who might be interested in taking some advanced classes, talk to them about what that entails. Are they ready to be motivated and stay on top of their assignments and, do maybe some extra work that the standard classes are not doing? And how balanced will that be? Because we do have a lot of students who have a lot of extracurricular activities. So making sure that your student is thinking about how to balance the time it will take for high school courses versus what they might be doing outside of school. If you have a student who volunteers a lot or someone who plays a lot of sports outside of school, then you may want to take fewer advanced classes than what you normally would in that case. So it's just a good conversation to have with your student. As Ms. Pertel mentioned earlier, they are going to come home with copies for you. If you need to make any changes on that form, feel free to do so and then sign it and return it with your student to the middle school, and those middle school counselors will get them over to us at the high school. And then we will be looking at finalizing schedule requests by May 22nd. After May 22nd, we cannot take any more requests. And the reason for that is because we do hire based on what the students have chosen for their electives. So we need to make sure that we have the staff in place to be able to offer all of the different electives and advanced courses and things that we want to be able to offer to our students next year. And as was mentioned earlier, if you can get any changes to us by spring break, that is ideal, because typically we can, fit those in a little bit easier at that point than when it is closer to that May 22nd deadline.
All right, so I'm just going to go through, I think there are some questions in the Q&A, so I'm just going to go through and start to answer some of those. Miss Corral, you can't see the Q&A, can you?
I cannot,
Okay,
unfortunately.
so I will maybe just put one of the questions out there out loud if you want to answer any of them. But
Okay.
one of our first questions was, what's the benefit of the advanced diploma, which is a great question. So what we typically tell students and parents is really the benefit is a lot of those classes required for the advanced diploma are classes that colleges like to see on the student's transcript. So by no means are we saying that a student has to have an advanced diploma in order to get into a college. That is not what we're saying at all. We have plenty of students on standard diplomas who go directly to a four-year college. But what we typically say is that advanced diploma requires students take 4 years of math and 4 years of science, and they have that language component. And those are typically classes that colleges do like to see on their transcript. I usually recommend that if there are certain colleges that students are interested in, that they can go and check on that college's website. And a lot of times they will list classes that they are specifically wanting to see in high school. And then I think Ms. Corral already answered this. What would you recommend that we as parents should do to best prepare students for their counselor meetings? And exactly what Ms. Corral said, specifically those electives, because those seem to be the hardest classes for our eighth graders to choose. So just kind of going over those beforehand is extremely beneficial. Where can you see all of the elective options? So Ms. Corral, can you confirm Ms. Snoots shared a Canvas page with our eighth grade families? Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. So each year, Miss Snoots creates a Canvas page for that particular class. So our rising ninth graders should have gotten an invitation to join a Canvas page. If for some reason your student didn't receive it or can't find it, please reach out to your student's counselor. We can go ahead and share that with you directly. But that does have a copy of the scheduling form that the students will be looking at when we go and meet with them.
And then, yes, there will be a recording of this meeting available. We will probably within the next couple weeks post it on our website, so it will be available on there. And then the next question is, if my child didn't do well in an advanced course in middle school, can they retake it during the summer to get a better grade so they don't need to retake it in high school? The answer mostly is yes and no. So yes, they can if the class is an option. So I do not believe, and Ms. Crow, please confirm, I do not believe Virtual Prince William offers Algebra 1 or like Spanish 1. So they don't offer those first levels in summer. And the reason being is because that summer term is so short, it's only 5 weeks long. And so it is extremely condensed, which does not allow students to really get the full class because it has to move so quickly and cram everything into those 5 weeks. So if your student is sitting, if it's Algebra 1, for example, that they're in right now in 8th grade and not doing well, they may not have the option to retake that in summer because it's not offered through virtual Prince William. So they would retake it in 9th grade. Is
Right.
that your understanding, Miss Crow?
Yes, I believe so. And families can go on to Virtual Prince William, the website. If you just Google, Virtual Prince William, you'll be able to see all the courses that they are planning to offer this summer. But I would also caution just because it's offered does not necessarily mean that it's the best fit for your child. The wonderful thing about Prince William County Schools is that they have so many options, which makes our job a little bit easier with figuring out what is best for each child. But with that being said, that does not mean that it's the right fit for every student. So I just caution families who see Virtual Prince William and it is free now, which is amazing. That does not mean that it's necessarily the right fit for your child. So feel free to reach out if you have questions about that, if you're unsure if it is a good fit. Virtual Prince William does a nice job on their website of kind of sharing like a frequently asked questions section of how much time students should spend each day, especially in summer school, working on their course. And it also talks about the type of student that does really well in Virtual Prince William. So you have to be super motivated and definitely not a procrastinator. And you have to be a self-starter. So just be aware of that. Think about like for Algebra 1, for example, what is the reason that they're not being successful this year? And maybe talk with the middle school teacher and find out. If it's because they're not turning in their work, I don't think taking it through Virtual Prince William would be a good idea. If it's a matter of maybe they're just missing a few concepts and they just need to, have some additional support with those, maybe that might be okay. Just know that what you take on Virtual Prince William, those go on your transcript as well. So for a student to take a class in the summer, that's going to be another grade going onto your transcript. And if you don't do well in that Virtual Prince William class, it still is added to your transcript. So we just like to caution students because I think a lot of families see this as a wonderful opportunity, and it is. We just also want to make sure that families really think about all of it before deciding if it's right for your child.
So we had a question about if you provide Project Lead the Way next year, can rising 10th graders join? So we are very limited with the Project Lead the Way classes that we're offering next year. They are actually kind of phasing out the program. So I believe the only two classes we're offering next year are Intro to Engineering Design, and I think Principles of Engineering, which is it's one of those 11th or 12th grade classes. So we're very limited. If your student's currently in Intro to Engineering Design, there really may not be many other classes for them to take after that. If the student is accepted into a specialty program, do they have the same classes all year? The students have the same classes all year no matter what. So students are in the same 7 classes all year long. We have an even odd day schedule, so they will have a certain set of classes on even days. They'll have another set of classes on odd days, and they just alternate every other day all year long. So they will be in those same 7 classes all year. Someone asked, why do some of the courses, fashion design, for example, not have a course number listed? I'm not sure exactly where you're seeing that. That could be, for example, we are offering a new class next year called Intro to Fashion Careers. I don't know if just maybe there wasn't a course number listed there yet. But like I said, your student should have gotten an invitation to that Canvas course for rising 9th graders, and you should see the scheduling sheet there. And if it's a class listed, it is one that we're trying to offer next year, even if there's no course number listed next to it. How many classes need to be taken to complete the sequential requirement to graduate? It's just 2, so it's just 2 electives that go together. There are a lot of options, but for example, it could be like Art 1 and Art 2. It could be two different classes like from our FACS department or two different classes from our business department, but it's two electives that go together. How do you advise an eighth grader who is currently taking all extended courses on how many advanced courses to take in ninth grade? So I think Ms. Kroll kind of touched base on this, but obviously that is a family decision. And we do have ninth graders who are in all advanced classes in their ninth grade year. So we don't want to tell you you can't do that or it's not what's best for your child. Of course, you know your child best and so do they themselves. But typically, like we said, we like to explore like how much activity are you doing outside of school? Is it a student who's in a sport or something like that? Let's say 6 days a week, or in band, which marching band, things like that. How much time are they spending outside of school in activities? And also just what are they interested in? If they really don't enjoy a certain subject area, then maybe they're going to choose to challenge themselves in another area. So we just really want students to find a good balance for themselves. And that is really based on what they're interested in and again, how much time outside of school they're spending on other activities other than their classes. On average, how many advanced classes are recommended for incoming ninth graders? We kind of think that sweet spot is two, but again, it can be less than that. It can be none at all if you really just want your child to focus on transitioning to high school and having a successful ninth grade year. It is completely fine for them to take all standard classes. And again, we have some students try one. We have some students in all four. I would say on average, we do recommend students maybe try about two, but that is up to your student and you as their parent.
I'll also say, Ms. Portel,
Yep.
this is when the eighth grade teacher recommendations are really helpful too. So feel free to reach out to your students' current teachers to kind of get their perspective. Because even if they do recommend them for, say, advanced geometry next year, that math teacher may have some reservations, or they may feel like, you know what, they are so gifted in math, I have no reservations whatsoever. And so that could help you decide as well as if you're trying to decide between which advanced classes you want your student to take. So having that conversation, even if it's just an email with the teachers, is sometimes helpful as well.
And then we have another question. Can a student that has never played an instrument join beginning orchestra, band, or percussion if they want to? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Um, and then if a student is somewhat fluent in a foreign language not offered in school, are they able to test and gain credit for what they know? And that is a great question. Yes, that is also an option. It is offered through the county. It is called World Language Credit by Assessment. So students can earn up to 3 credits in a language. And typically there are announcements that come out in the fall for trying to register to complete that assessment. Usually, I think it opens up around mid-September and then closes around mid-October. And that's just your attempt at trying to register your student to take that assessment. Not every single student is always given that opportunity that year, but I would encourage you to continue. They usually students can try again the following year and they will eventually get to you. It's just that sometimes staff is limited at Central of, who's doing the assessments. So, but that is an opportunity for your student to earn up to 3 credits in a world language.
And with that world language assessment, if you feel pretty strongly that your student will test out of those credits, they can choose not to do world language, knowing that they'll get those world language credits for an advanced studies diploma through that test. So we do have some students in ninth and 10th grade who are planning to do that, and so they choose not to take a language at Patriot.
So we have another question. How do we know if our child is being recommended by their eighth grade teachers for advanced classes? I would recommend either reaching out directly to that teacher to ask, what class they are recommending for your student for ninth grade. You can also reach out to the middle school counselor. They would have that available as well. But that would be my recommendation, is to reach out directly to that teacher or to your student's middle school counselor, and they'll be able to share that information. And then someone just mentioned that they're not sure where to find a Canvas page for parents to view the electives. It should be, if you ask your student to log into their Canvas, it should be a course they were invited to join, and it should be a rising ninth grade, or it should say the class of, what class are they, Miss Kura? I'm like,
Gosh, I think they're class of 2031.
yeah, it should
Right?
be something that is attached to Patriot, and that should have been sent to your student. So you can ask your student to just log into their Canvas, and then you should be able to view the scheduling form in there. And then what are the 7 areas that students have from the schedule form? Do you know if it's an elective on the form? So they're going to be choosing an English, a math, a science, a history. They'll also be choosing PE. If most ninth grade students are in PE in the building, again, you have the option of potentially doing that through virtual Prince-William if you want to. But they would have PE, and then they'd have room for 2 electives. One of those electives may be a world language if they're choosing to take a world language in ninth grade. And then they will choose 2 alternate electives. So those are going to be our backup choices if the first elective does not work out in their schedule. And then, yes, it sounds like this person who is asking about the Canvas page found the electives, and they are asking if those are the only open electives for rising ninth graders. And so, yes, it is a smaller list of elective choices for rising ninth graders. Once they get into 10th grade and beyond, you will see the amount of electives increase significantly. So it is kind of a smaller number for our rising ninth graders, but the list gets much, much, much larger once they get into 10th grade and beyond. And then I don't think at this current moment I'm able to explain that George Mason Patriot program, but I would recommend that if that is something you're interested in, I would maybe connect with our college and career counselor, Miss Jager, and she may be able to, well, she will be able to provide more information on that George Mason and Patriot partnership. So I think that is all of the questions that were in the chat. So hopefully we answered everything. If not, we are happy to help. And if you want to reach out to your students counselor, you are more than welcome to do that. And we would be happy to help in any way that we can. We appreciate all of you being here, and we look forward to working with your students during academic advising within the next couple weeks, and then once they get into ninth grade and beyond. So thank you so much for being here.